On the afternoon of January 12, 2022, Ashling Murphy, a talented musician and teacher, was set upon and murdered in brutal fashion. The 23-year-old was stabbed 11 times in the neck when she was out jogging along the bank of the Grand Canal in Tullamore, County Offaly. The savage nature of the attack and the fact that it occurred in broad daylight sent shockwaves through the country. 3 days after the murder, the Irish Times printed a piece quoting "an epidemic of femicide and a culture of misogyny in Ireland." Also, The Guardian asked if Murphy's murder would change Ireland's culture of misogyny. National soul-searching had begun, and the narrative that emerged was that Ireland's men were to blame. Dozens of vigils were held across the nation, promoted by the Women's Council of Ireland, the NWC. Speaking to a crowd of thousands outside of government buildings in Dublin, the head of the council, Orla O'Connor, stated, "The death of Ashling Murphy must be a watershed moment to end violence against women." Helen McEntee, Ireland's Minister of Justice, tweeted, "I am working to ensure we have a society that does not tolerate this any longer."
I know that people are feeling shocked, but also angry, and I share that anger. This is a woman's worst nightmare, and I say that because while no woman should have to take measures when they're going out and about to stay safe, Ashling was out during the day. It was bright. There was a lot of people about, and she was in an area that local people felt was always safe, and yet this has happened to her. It is every woman's worst nightmare. It is every family's worst nightmare, and so everything will be done to ensure that the Gardaí have the support that they need to bring about justice, and that whoever is responsible for this will face the full rigours of the law.
Detectives are still trying to establish a motive for the murder. They're examining all possible lines of inquiry, if it was robbery, if there was a sexual motive, and they say they're keeping an open mind.
In an official statement, Prime Minister Micheál Martin said, "We have spent much of the past week questioning our attitudes towards women. Are we doing anything to help? Are we doing enough to help? Are we part of the problem?" Irish men hung their heads in shame as the magnitude and veracity of their misogyny was hammered home. But then the narrative hit a speed bump.
Breaking news, the arrest made on suspicion of murder, a man in his 30s. This is regarding the murder of Ashling Murphy, the school teacher who was murdered last week in County Offaly. We can speak to our correspondent David Blevins now. And David, this arrest took place shortly after Ashling's funeral today.
Yes, police are providing very little detail at this stage for operational reasons, other than to confirm that detectives investigating the murder of the 23-year-old primary school teacher last Wednesday have arrested a man in his 30s. He's currently being detained at Tullamore Garda Station under Section 4 of the Criminal Justice Act 1984, and that questioning could go on for some time. An Garda Síochána, the Irish Police Service, are adamant that they will not be making any further comment at this stage, but it is nonetheless a significant development, and as you say, it comes just a matter of hours after the small village of Mount Bolus in County Offaly came to a complete standstill for the funeral of Ashling Murphy. There can be no question whatsoever about the esteem in which she was held. Literally hundreds upon hundreds of people turned out. Also there, the Prime Minister and Taoiseach Micheál Martin, and that's because really the murder of this young woman has had an enormous impact both at home and abroad. People are not just saddened by it, they are very angry about the fact that after all this time women are still being subjected to violence, and there have been all sorts of vigils and calls for a change in attitude, for this to be the watershed moment. And I think that's the important thing to remember today. While the murder investigation continues behind the scenes, and while there has been this arrest, this is a day when Ashling's family and friends want to remember a very beautiful young woman who was so cruelly snatched away in unthinkable circumstances.
On January 18th, Joseph Pusca, an immigrant from Slovakia, was arrested. Jobless Slovakian Roma immigrant Joseph Pusca, who lived in a 5-bedroom house on welfare and didn't speak English, was actually convicted in his native Slovakia for sex with a minor and received probation and was a person of interest in 2 cases of assault against women, matching the profile of the offender in both. He claimed he was disabled, but he cycled his bike around for 10 years in Ireland. Joseph Pusca's migrant family were also charged over obstruction of the Ashling Murphy investigation. The narrative of misogynistic Irish men should have died on the day of Pusca's arrest, but it didn't. Politicians such as Helen McEntee and Micheál Martin co-opted the death of Ashling Murphy to cover for their disastrous migration policies. Ashling Murphy's sister Amy Murphy told Joseph Pusca in her victim impact statement, "You were given an Irish welcome and support by the state. You repaid this by brutally murdering a beautiful and talented girl who contributed so much to society."
At this moment in time, and on behalf of the Murphy family, I would like to take this opportunity to express our deep gratitude to all of our family, friends and community for their unwavering support since our Ashling was stolen from us 22 months ago on the 12th of January 2022. From day one, the outpouring of love and support was felt in abundance from the Irish people, both on a national and international level. She was not only an integral part of our family, but she was also a huge shining light in our community, a community in which, year in, year out, she gave back to as best she could. Words cannot express the gratitude to all members of An Garda Síochána who conducted and pieced together a robust and thorough investigation. We wish to formally thank the prosecution legal team, Justice Hunt, and also our family liaison officers, Sergeant Lucy McLaughlin and Detective Garda Alan Burke. We'd like to also thank the victim support at court team, who were always there for us, always waiting to help us at any given moment.
Ashling Murphy's boyfriend Ryan Casey put out a statement saying, "How can someone come to this country, get social housing, social welfare, not hold down a job of any description, and never contribute to society for 10 years? This is not the country that Ashling and I grew up in and once loved. It has officially lost its innocence. This country needs to wake up. This time things have got to change. We don't want to see any other family to have to go through what we have gone through. This country is simply not safe anymore. I'm afraid our country is heading down a very dangerous path." Parts of Ryan Casey's victim impact statement were called "Incitement to Hatred" by Irish Times journalist Kitty Holland on the BBC Northern Ireland programme The View. Kitty, who cheers on open border insanity, made up stories about immigrants being attacked, and refused to print the impact statement of Ashling Murphy's boyfriend, who blamed mass immigration, instead choosing to call him a hero of the far right.
Kitty, I wonder, do you think the politicians and media ignore what others around the country said was the most significant part of Ryan Casey's victim impact statement? Ryan Casey, of course, was the boyfriend of the murdered teacher, Ashling Murphy. He prefaced his victim impact statement by saying his girlfriend's murderer had lived off the state without contributing to it for 10 years. And then he said, "I feel like this country is no longer the country that Ashling and I grew up in and has officially lost its innocence when a crime of this magnitude could be perpetrated in broad daylight. We have to once and for all," he said, "start putting the safety of not only Irish people, but everybody in this country who works hard, pays taxes, raises families, and overall contributes to society first." Those were very interesting comments, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think elements of them were not good, frankly. I think they were incitement to hatred, and I think that's why aspects the media left out aspects of them. This was an extremely heartbroken and devastated young man who has lost the partner of his life. But the race and nationality of the man who perpetrated that awful violence on Ashling and murdered her is irrelevant. And I can understand, in the emotion and him feeling that, and he's entitled to his views. But I think the media has a responsibility to not report views that are incitement to hatred, and he is being held up as a hero of the far right now. So interesting, you may call them, but I
complex, I suppose, is another word that you could use for them. I mean, I'm sure he would say they weren't meant to be incitement to hatred. Was it the right thing for the media to overlook them in those circumstances? I mean, was it an embarrassed overlooking of those comments, do you think?
I don't think so. I think they were right to not include them. They were said they were. I don't think that they were helpful, and it's the kind of thing that the far right latches onto. That they latched onto the nationality of the man who attacked the children, and I'd love them to go down to the courts and report on all the white Irish men who are perpetrating violence on Irish and immigrant women every day in the court. They're not doing that. So the nationality, what the problem here is violence against women and children. It's not the nationality of the people who are perpetrating it. The problem is misogyny and hatred and entitlement to inflict violence on women and children. It's another related issue and ill in society, but it has nothing to do with race.
Irish politician Holly Cairns also later said, "There is no link between criminality and immigration." How many lives need to be lost and affected before the government realises open borders are a danger to the Irish people's safety? Ireland has changed and is now a very dangerous country because of mass immigration. The Irish government have Ashling's blood on their hands.